I'm Eva Pilgrim. Thanks for streaming with us. The defense getting their chance today to question Sean Diddy Combs' ex, Cassie Ventura. She spent 2 days telling the jury about how he forced her into drug-fueled freak-offs against her will with male prostitutes. Combs' defense now trying to paint a very different picture of their decade-long relationship. Cassie grilled about explicit text messages with Combs as the defense tried to show the jury the freak-offs were a defining feature of their relationship. This as the judge told the defense to wrap this up by tomorrow because Cassie, who is 8.5 months pregnant, could go into labor any minute now. Combs faces the possibility of life in prison if convicted. He's pleaded not guilty and has denied all wrongdoing. We'll break down everything that happened in court today. We'll also get into the top searches on the web right now tied to the Diddy trial, like white nail polish and can Trump pardon Diddy? We'll answer those questions in a bit. First, though, let's go to Aaron Katersky, our chief investigative correspondent outside the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Aaron, can you take us inside the courtroom? The defense is finally getting to question Cassie Ventura. What was this questioning like?
The questioning was very intense, although it was relatively gentle. But here was a woman who is a mother now, expecting her third child at any moment, with her husband in the courtroom reading aloud the most personal and intimate text messages you could ever imagine being read in open court about the sex she desired, the orgasms she had, and what she wanted to do with her intimate partner at the time, Sean Combs. And this was, if embarrassing for her, she seemed kind of resigned to it because she read it in matter-of-fact, rather kind of calm, flat tone, and she never wavered, she never lost her composure.
I'm curious, Aaron, what was the reaction in the courtroom as she read those text messages?
Well, some of the jurors, one woman shook her head, but most of them appeared to lean in toward their screen so they could read along and follow along as some of the messages, maybe the less eye-popping ones, but nonetheless pointed toward the evidence, where she said, "I'm always ready to freak off. I love to F-O, to freak off." Because the idea on the defense side is to say that Cassie Ventura was not coerced into these sexual encounters with male prostitutes under threat of violence or humiliation the way prosecutors described, but was a willing, even eager participant in the swingers lifestyle that they say Sean Combs led.
Aaron, there was also some pretty surprising testimony today about Combs' drug use, allegations that he was addicted to opiates and at one point overdosed. What did we learn?
Well, this was part of the defense strategy, to concede that he's a drug user. Now, maybe the public didn't know the extent, but the defense was pretty frank that at one point he was addicted to opiates. At one point he flew to Mexico to try what Cassie Ventura called a plant medicine type remedy that's not legal in the United States, that the two together tried just about every drug, MDMA, ecstasy, ketamine, that the night of the now infamous freak-off in 2016 in the Los Angeles Intercontinental Hotel, where an assault was then captured on video, that maybe Combs was high on a bad batch of MDMA. But the idea here, Eva, I think, was to say that the violence from Combs was not to coerce Cassie Ventura into sex. It was the result of drugs, or, in another aspect, was the result of jealousy and her infidelity. Because we also heard today, Eva, about her dating Kid Cudi and about her dating the actor Michael B. Jordan, and how that led to some pretty scary arguments, as Ventura put it, with Sean Combs.
Aaron, I also have to ask you, because the defense asked her today on the stand about drugs in the baby oil. What did she say about that?
Oh, that was kind of a throwaway, and it just right before a break. But I think there's been some rumor about that there had been drugs in the baby oil, or the baby oil was tainted. But Cassie Ventura said that there were no drugs in the baby oil. She said plenty of other things about the baby oil during the course of her testimony, but drugs weren't apparently part of it.
Yeah, an internet rumor she dispelled there on the stand today. Aaron Katersky, thank you so much there from the courthouse. Now let's break down some of the testimony from today's cross-examination of Cassie Ventura with ABC News legal contributor and trial attorney Brian Buckmeyer. You were also in the courtroom there today, so I'm curious to you, what was the standout moment?
Well, to narrow it down to just one is very difficult, so give me a chance to say two. Of course, those salacious text messages that everyone's talking about, details that are hard to get into, but I think not just the text messages, but the order in which they came about. The defense making the argument that Cassie and Combs had decided to have a freak-off some days in advance, and the days leading up to those are where those salacious text messages came in, making it seem that Cassie really wanted to participate in them. But also, I didn't think I was going to wake up this morning and find myself having just an iota of sympathy for Combs, because in the end of the morning, the defense made it seem like these two might have been two addicts participating in sexual encounters, and that's where the violence came from. Cassie testifying that she believed that at some point in time, Combs was an addict trying to get out of it, and that the withdrawal made him very irritable and angry at times.
We also have to talk about the jealousy that she talked about there on the stand in their relationship, and Cassie's concern about being a side piece, not the main girl. Tell us about that line of questioning.
So I think we're going to get there eventually when we get a broader sense of this, but don't forget, Kim Porter, whose children and that she shares with Sean Combs are in the court. I think the argument that we're having here is we see text messages like this. I'm nervous that I'm just becoming the girlfriend that you get your fantasies off with, and that's it. I don't get that, the other part, because Kim Porter is still in the scene. She is the quote unquote main girl. And I think the argument here is that Cassie is indulging in these fantasies, hoping that if she keeps doing it, that Sean Combs will pick her. And the defense, I think, is making the argument that she's not getting the attention or the love that she wants. She's not becoming the main girl here. And it's the jealousy that is fueling the violence, not the fact that Sean Combs is trafficking her. And we start to see resemblance of that argument.
We heard Aaron Katersky mention the defense referenced those text messages today. What stood out to you?
So again, in the text messages, I think the conversation about how freak-offs were a part of their conversations, how they talked about going out and having a good time, but also plan the freak-offs. And the freak-offs seem to be part and parcel with the relationship. Looking at the dates again, let's just go back to this message real quick. That's 2009, where she says she's nervous about just being a girlfriend. And here's 2017, some years later, saying, I love the freak-offs when we both wanted. It seems like the issue wasn't about freak-offs or not freak-offs, but that she wanted and enjoyed the freak-offs where they had a freak-off and then they had sexual relations afterwards, or vice versa, but they had that intimate time as a part of the freak-offs, not just that the freak-offs were bad altogether.
Not just something he wanted to do, something she wanted to participate in as well. The defense attorney has taken the lead here today in the questioning. Tell us about who this attorney is.
So Anna Estevos, she is the defense attorney who is cross-examining Cassie Ventura. We see some of her positions. He's a partner of the firm, White Collar Defense, worked as a federal defender in California for a year. I think she graduated law school in 2015. And so I see a lot of criticism online about her cross-examination. I would say from a factual standpoint, yes, you may see a defense attorney meander in the way that they ask questions, meander in the way that they're trying to argue. But the issue that stood out to me is some of the difficulties that she had in terms of getting the evidence in front of the court. The judge helping her out, sometimes making mistakes. And another thing that I'll add a little color of the court, the amount of notes that were handed up to her from Combs, Tenny Garagos. At one point, it was just pink note after pink note after pink note. She had about 10 or so sitting next to her. And then I noticed at some point, the pink notes ran out and they started giving her yellow notes. Just so much information to help her get along with this cross-examination. I think she's doing a good job of getting the facts, just getting there seems to be a little difficult.
Interesting. Brian Buckmeyer, thank you so much for being with us today. And still ahead, after 4 days of testimony and 1 day of cross-examination, which side seems to have the leg up here? Our legal team is standing by. Also coming up, will Trump pardon Diddy? Why that's one of the top searches about this trial. Stay with us. Welcome back to ABC News Live. Day 4 of testimony has wrapped up, the first day of Cassie Ventura's cross-examination. The defense peppering her with questions about infidelity and jealousy in their relationship, showing the jury sexually explicit evidence concealed by privacy screens from the rest of the court. It's time to break down these legal arguments that we've seen today. We've got Brian Buckmeyer playing the defense today and Bernarda Villalona playing prosecutor. Brian, I'm going to start with you since the defense is doing the cross at the moment. Is the defense punching holes in this case?
I think to some degree they are, but as I'm listening to this testimony and seeing this cross-examination, I don't think it's so much that they're punching holes. It's more so that they're creating a separate narrative altogether. And I don't think that they're actually winning so much, and I think that the prosecution isn't winning because they're creating a separate narrative that is reasonable, that does create doubt, and that's what a defense attorney does. I'm left after the morning, especially when I was sitting there in court and reading the transcript as we continue, is this trafficking? Or is this two individuals who are addicted to drugs, violently and aggressively interacting with each other? Is this domestic violence or is this trafficking? I'm still having that question mark, but I don't think this witness is going to bring us all the way there. I think we still have to wait for the trial to continue.
Bernarda, you're sitting there as the prosecution watching this cross. You getting nervous?
Not at all, because the defense attorney is falling flat in terms of the delivery, in terms of how she's questioning Cassie Ventura, in terms of the logic in her questioning. It's all over the place and it's very difficult to follow. So yes, the defense attorney know what all the text messages are, and the prosecution does as well. But guess who needs to know? The jury does. So the way and the manner that it's being delivered and the way that she's being questioned is falling flat. So as the prosecutor, I'm like, okay, what's your next question? Because you're also giving a lot of time for Cassie to think about whatever question that you're posing to her, which is not good for the defense.
And the prosecution is going to have a chance to clean all this up after.
Absolutely.
So what
but it's not much to clean up, though. It's not much to clean up. The prosecutor is aware of these text messages because guess what? The prosecutor was the one who turned it over to the defense. So they're ready for it.
But I'll say this, though. I think the defense did a good job in the sense of, and again, this isn't the defense winning so much as the prosecution not so much. The prosecution gave us this much in terms of text message, and the defense got to have the opportunity, which I love doing when I'm a defense attorney, to say, hey, it's their burden. They're supposed to prove this case, but they gave you 5% of this conversation. I'm the one who's giving you 100% of it. This is the real context of it. And I think when you read all these text messages, it made it seem like the prosecution was somewhat disingenuous and not giving them everything. So even if the government comes up and rehabilitates, I would still be like, well, you never gave us the whole thing to begin with.
But I have to disagree because what's coming out through the defense is that the defense is bringing the lovey-dovey part of the relationship, right? He's on trial, not for the lovey-dovey part, he's on trial for the criminal part. So the prosecutor came out with the criminal part having to deal with the text messages and with the testimony that makes this case a criminal case, not the lovey-dovey part. In fact, the prosecution can clean that out. Like, yes, I told you in opening that they had a complicated relationship. At times they loved each other. They probably loved each other during the entire relationship. But what we're here for is the criminal part, which is the freak-offs that wasn't with her consent, which was the violence that was part of that coercion, that manipulation that put her in fear to unwillingly consent at times to these freak-offs.
Okay, we've got to also talk about kind of the other issue at hand here, which is that Cassie is 8.5 months pregnant. And the judge was very clear that he wants the defense to wrap this up because she might give birth any moment. Is that a problem for the defense?
I mean, it depends on how you want to operate. I'm not going to say that I have done this. I'm not going to say that people I know have done this. But if you know a witness is on the clock and then they have to end their testimony, the defense could be bumbling, dragging their feet to some degree, because if they finish their cross-examination late into Friday afternoon, it limits the amount of time that Bernarda is talking about to rehabilitate this witness. Because if they end at 3 o'clock on Friday and they know they only have 2 hours to do a redirect, it hurts their opportunity to try to make their case better. So maybe there's some strategy that her having to leave at a certain time actually helps the defense.
So you think they're using the strategy?
I'm not saying that any defense attorney has ever done this, nor have I said that I have done this. I'm just saying theoretically it could be possible.
Okay, I have to ask you also, both of you, Who do you think has the leg up here right now? Bernardo, you go first.
Well, we're still dealing with just the first main witness, right? So I can't say that anybody has the leg up that's going to carry out the entire trial. But I would say that based on the direct examination and the cross-examination so far, that the prosecution still has the leg up, because whatever little damage, minor damage that was done today, I think can still be explained. And you also have the other witnesses that have to testify, so.
I think at this point it's 50-50, and as a defense attorney, 50-50 means there's reasonable doubt, and that means the defense wins. But I do think this: Cassie is not the star witnesses that we all been talking about. She is the star victim. I don't think she would know herself if she was trafficked or abused, because she was so into this. I think what has to happen, the star witness, would be someone inside of Sean Combs' inner circle to say, this wasn't a drug-fueled relationship. We all knew she was being trafficked. Combs told me this, this person knew it, that person knew it. She was just so wrapped in it, she didn't know she was being trafficked. So until that person comes and testifies and they get that information, I don't think we know who's winning this case so far.
As a prosecution, is that a hard, bridge to build?
No, not at all, because the prosecution, the government has the power. You decide who you're going to prosecute. You decide who you want to cut a deal with. You decide who you're going to want to bring in as a witness, who you want to compel as a witness, who you say, you know what, you committed a crime. I'm going to hold this against you unless you are willing to cooperate and come in and testify. So not concerned as a prosecutor, because you have the whole government behind you and resources as well. So while Diddy is was a billionaire and does have a lot of money and wealth, can bring 8 firms in, the government is the government and has pretty much unlimited resources to bring this prosecution. And they know that they can't fall flat, so they are giving it their all.
And there are still weeks ahead.
Someone got immunity. Someone's going to testify.
We'll have to wait and see. Thank you both so much for being with us. And coming up, Michael B. Jordan. And what does white nail polish mean? 2 topics a lot of people are searching online when it comes to this Diddy trial. We'll tell you why when we come back. Welcome back. We are following the latest in the sex trafficking and racketeering conspiracy trial of Sean Diddy Combs. But first, let's get you up to speed on some of the other big court cases happening right now. In Idaho today, a pretrial hearing for Brian Kohberger. The judge went over the basic rules for his upcoming capital murder trial and left the door open to possibly sequestering the jury. Kohberger's lawyers insist he had nothing to do with the deadly stabbings of 4 college students. His trial is set for August. The Menendez brothers possibly one step closer to being released from prison. Multiple sources telling ABC News the hearing initiated by Governor Newsom next month to explore a path to clemency for the two, now being turned into a regular parole board hearing. The move could expedite the brothers' path to freedom. However, if they're granted immediate parole, and that is not a given, it could be months or even years before they are actually released. In the Karen Reed murder retrial just outside of Boston, the medical examiner taking the stand saying John O'Keefe died from blunt impact injuries of the head and hypothermia, but she couldn't determine how those injuries happened. Reed has denied allegations she hit her then boyfriend, a Boston police officer, with her car and left him to die in the cold. Back now to the trial against Sean Diddy Combs. People can't seem to get enough of it online, and that's where our segment Searched comes into play, where we break down some of the day's biggest searches tied to this case. Today's biggest search terms related to the trial include, will Trump pardon Diddy? And just to give you an idea of how interested people are in this case, take a look at this. People camping out in tents in the rain outside court for just a chance to get inside. Kelly Carter joins us now. She covers entertainment and pop culture for us. Kelly, okay, so based on our ABC web search data, nearly all the people in the Diddy Cassie world mentioned during the trial have seen a bump in searches. So, like who?
Yeah, people are searching for names like Kim Porter, who obviously is a former partner. of Sean Combs. She is now deceased, but they shared 3 biological children together and a 4th one that they raised together. And also Michael B. Jordan, that came up initially in jury selection, but again in courtroom today because people are discovering that they potentially may have dated when they were filming a movie together briefly at some point. So people are searching, trying to see if there's anything that they can call from what was mentioned in court today with that name.
This next topic actually popped up 2 days in a row because it was up yesterday as well. Imprisoned Suge Knight says Trump will pardon Diddy if convicted, was widely searched. Then today, will Trump pardon Diddy?
Yeah, I want to remind people again that Suge Knight, of course, was a rival music mogul to Sean Combs. He ran Death Row Records, who's co-founder of that, while Combs was founder of Bad Boy Records, and they very publicly beefed. And so he gave a prison side interview where he mentioned that he thinks that might happen should Sean be found guilty in this court of law.
This next search is interesting. What does white nail polish mean?
Yeah, people are obviously searching that because there's a lot of conversation about how Sean may have orchestrated every little bit of these freak-offs, and including what she wore, including what color her nails were. And he requested, according to her, that they were white. And so people are trying to discover, is there some hidden meaning? Of course, if you search that, you will see that it tells you what it always tells you about the color white, is that it means purity of some sort. But people are trying to see if there's some deeper meaning with that one as well, with that search.
Another question people are asking, who is Jonathan Odie?
Now, this one is interesting. Jonathan Odie was arrested a couple of years back for opening fire against some police officers in a Trump hotel in Miami. And he said at the time that he is a former adult film star who was hired to be Sean Combs' sex slave. No one really paid attention to that conversation, but his name came up in court this week as Cassie identified him as one of the sex workers that they would hire. So apparently, there may have been something to his claims a few years ago.
And this last question, we heard one of our legal contributors also reference Diddy's worth. People want to know, what's Diddy's net worth?
Yeah, and I think that probably came up because, of course, we found out in court what that settlement fee was for that 2023 civil suit that Cassie filed against Sean and settled, within 24 hours. And then that amount was $20 million, which to all of us watching and even to those of us covering this trial is a large sum of money. And so people wanted to probably get an idea of how much of a hit that was to an empire that we knew at some point had grown to $1 billion enterprise, but probably is significantly less and hovering around maybe 300 million now, according to a couple of financial reports.
Kelly, as always, thank you so much. And thank you for joining us. We'll be back with new episodes every day of the trial. The show streams right here on ABC News Live, Disney Plus, and Hulu weekdays at 5:30 p.m. Eastern. For even more on the Diddy trial, make sure to follow our podcast, Bad Rap, the case against Diddy, hosted by our very own Brian Buckmeyer on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. I'm Eva Pilgrim in New York. Have a good rest of your day.